Far in the western Pacific lie the Yap Islands. For anyone willing to journey 1,000 miles east of the Philippines, these islands offer a tropical paradise and one of the most interesting examples of primitive money, the Rai Stones. Yapese myths say that a man, Anagumang, was the ancient navigator who found the limestone caves of Palau and returned to Yap with the first stone money. Anagumang first ordered the men to cut the pieces of stone money in the shape of a fish. Not satisfied, he had them cut in the shape of a crescent moon. Finally, he settled on a piece shaped like a full moon with a hole cut in it for carrying it, and brought it to the Yap. The first money was small and may have been used as ornaments. The hard, sparkling rock from which the money was quarried is unlike anything found in Yap. Hundreds of voyages followed Anagumang's initial excursion. The Yapese themselves had to gain permission from the Palauan chiefs of the islands and villages in which the quarry they wanted to use lay. Some returned, others did not. The hazards of the 250 miles journey to Palau in tiny canoes gave the money its value. Even with the best weather and the finest canoe, the trip took a week, and the conditions often were far from ideal. An entire expedition could be lost in a storm. Often, pieces of the money were given the names of men who died bringing it to Yap, and stories of their deeds passed along with their money. Rai Stones as sound money. Unknowingly, the Yapese had discovered something that, given their circumstances, ticked many of the boxes that defined sound money as first documented by Aristotle. Scarcity. The stones were only accessible across 300 miles of open sea. Durable. They were made of stone. Recognizable. Its shiny quartz-like surface was its main attraction. Divisible. Limestone is one of the easiest stones to carve and holds great detail. Fungible. The quality of stone was consistent, making each Rai stone interchangeable. Portability is the last of the 6 key characteristics of money and the most obvious drawback of Rai stones. Transporting these enormous stones manually across open water was particularly challenging, as was physical exchange. Visiting Europeans in the 19th century brought iron tools with them, enabling excavation of even bigger stones. The largest was 3.5 meters wide and would take over 100 men to lift. But most stones were rarely moved. Instead, the largest stones were only exchanged for the most significant reasons, such as dowries or building alliances. Many were abandoned on Palau, while some were lost at sea, but that didn't really matter to their function as money, as they could still be traded just like those that were visible within the villages of Yap. The characteristics of Rai stones, the way they were sourced, traded but not physically moved, and ownership recorded in a shared oral ledger has led to comparisons to Bitcoin. But today, Rai stones are just a tourist attraction because the increasing outside influences of Yap eroded the most crucial of their characteristics as money: scarcity. Scarcity and the demise of Rai stones. In 18 71. An Irish sea captain named David O'Keefe was shipwrecked on Yap. In return for food and shelter, he helped carve the Rai Stones and realized that this presented a great business opportunity. He wanted to buy coconuts from the locals, but they weren't interested in external forms of money, so he brought equipment to Palau to quarry Rai stones and presented them as payment on Yap. Most rejected them because they hadn't been created in the traditional way. To use a Bitcoin analogy, the required proof of work hadn't been done. Unfortunately, some locals were willing to trade with O'Keefe, which was the beginning of the end for Rai stones as a currency, as it undermined the critical element of scarcity. From Rai stones to Bitcoin. Humans need money as a means to an end. It's how we transport the energy we expend in our labors across space and time. And as Aristotle discovered, the most effective money that is described as sound or hard money has very specific characteristics. When a superior form of money is discovered, as happened on Yap, the old is inevitably abandoned for the new. If that weren't the case, we'd still be using beads, coconuts, shells, salt, or Yap stones, all of which have been used as money at some point. Of course, we're not still using them. Each were discarded in favor of sounder money, and when you think about how money naturally evolves in that way, it should make it easier to understand why the money we take for granted might be replaced by something greater. Just as the weakness of Rai stones was relative scarcity, it might be a surprise to you to know that the money we all use today isn't scarce. Till next time.